If you didn't know, your favorite car companies sell lots of stuff besides cars. You can get Porsche ice cube trays, Audi, they make a board game, or Lamborghini, they make Bluetooth speakers that sort of look like a Lamborghini. Those are gonna set you back $25,870 bucks. But for just a little bit more, Chevy will sell you a 1,000 horsepower ready to run engine that's a hell of a lot louder than those speakers. Today is all about the ZZ632, the baddest big block engine ever built. We're gonna figure out how it makes crazy power and why an engine with roots from the 50s won a Best of New Product Award at SEMA in 2021. Let's go.
Big thanks to Valvoline for sponsoring today's video.
Ugh, that universal antifreeze isn't sitting well in my reservoir.
Ooh, sorry bud. Next time, use Valvoline's Xerox antifreeze. It's made specifically for your make and model with the most OEM approvals on the market. There's one for European cars.
I love the stuff.
Asian cars.
It's my favorite.
And heavy duty diesels.
What? Judy's got measles? Speak up, I can't hear you, Nolan.
And there's one for American cars. See? Xerox gives you better protection against the 4 main causes of cooling system failure.
Which are freezing, overheating, cracking, or breaking.
That's right, European car. You see, Valvoline's patented formulas contain the highest quality additive packages in the industry and ensures ideal corrosion protection versus generic antifreeze.
Bless you.
Huh?
I thought I heard you sneeze.
No. I said antifreeze.
Yeah, you sneezed. That's why I said bless you. Get your hearing checked, Nolan. Come on.
Trucks. Valvoline Xerox is the #1 OEM approved coolant brand, and right now you can get $2 off any gallon of Xerox at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts today. All right, who wants to go to the car wash?
Chevy's ZZ632 is the most powerful engine GM has ever sold to the public, blending old and new tech to produce over 1,000 horsepower. But it isn't the first motor from a major manufacturer producing that much power. Back in 2018 at SEMA, Dodge, they announced the Elephant, a 426 cubic inch Hemi engine which also made 1,000 horsepower. But unlike the Elephant, the 632 makes its power without the addition of forced induction. There's no supercharger here, it's all motor. And the power is not just because of the size. Size matters, but it's what you do with it that counts. But before we find out how it makes so much power, let's see why you'd want a crate motor in the first place. Now, for decades, car manufacturers, especially Ford, GM, and Chrysler, have sold performance engines directly to the public. These are often souped up versions of regular engines built to specs not available in their road cars and frequently not road legal. That's because they're the kinds of engines that hot rodders and racers would build for their own projects. But crate motors save a lot of trouble. They're shipped to you mostly assembled, and in the easiest cases, you simply remove your brand new motor from its shipping crate, hence the name, and install it in the chassis of your choice. It's pretty much combining the best of two worlds. Built meets bought. You might be able to build something more powerful on your own, but a crate motor can be a huge time saver. So now that we know what crate motors are for, we can dig into what makes the ZZ632 a very special one. And the biggest reason is right there in the name. That's the engine displacement, 632 cubic inches. So, what's displacement anyways? Mr. B, we already know what displacement is. Oh yeah? Okay, yeah, well then calculate the displacement of a V8 engine with a bore of 4.6 and a stroke of 4.75. 632 cubic inches? Okay, freaking lucky guess, but yeah, all right. An engine is an air pump, and displacement is simply the volume of air it can pump. We calculate displacement by measuring the cylinder's swept volume. The space inside a cylinder can be divided into 2 parts. The swept volume is the space the piston passes through from bottom dead center to top dead center. And the clearance volume is the space between the piston crown at top dead center and the head. Multiply the swept volume of one cylinder by the number of cylinders, and that's the engine's total displacement. The greater an engine's displacement, the more air it can pump, the more fuel it can burn, and the more power it can produce. Which is why people say there's no replacement for displacement. And 632 cubic inches is a lot of displacement. Bore, stroke, sweat volume, those are all just fancy words. You may not be able to visualize 632 cubic inches, but it's more common to talk about displacement in terms of liters anyway. 632 cubic inches is 10.3 liters, and seeing that helps give a sense of why the 632 can make 1,000 horsepower. In fact, each cylinder in the 632 has greater displacement than the entire engine in the base model of Chevy's own Trailblazer. Come on, Trailblazer, what trail are you blazing? So, is that it? Is it simply because we have a lot of displacement that's getting us 1,000 horsepower? Well, no. Hot rodders and customizers have been making their own 632 big blocks for years, and most of those produce 800 or 900 horsepower. The ones that exceed 1,000 horsepower, they're usually using forced induction, like supercharging or turbocharging. The ZZ632's power isn't just about its size though. It's also because it's a precision factory race engine. Like most crate motors, the 632 has features you won't find in an ordinary car. And those features exist because none of the displacement matters if you can't use it. That starts with getting enough fuel and air into the massive cylinders, and that's the job of the head. The 632 uses aluminum heads, and a huge part of the engineering behind those was developing the CNC programming to produce perfect shapes in billets of aluminum. To reach 1,000 horsepower, the heads need to flow the maximum amount of air to every cylinder, so they were designed with smooth, large, and identically sized intake ports to ensure each cylinder is achieving peak performance. Maximizing airflow also meant using larger valves, but those are heavier and they can reduce the rev limit and top end power. So to prevent that, the 632's larger valves use narrower stems to reduce their reciprocating mass, allowing for a red line of 7,000 RPM. So it's pretty high for a big motor like that. We did an entire episode about what limits red lines, and the weight and strength of an engine's bottom end is a huge factor too. In that episode, I was a power bottom, no big deal. So to make sure a 632 could handle 7,000 RPM and 1,000 horsepower, everything in the bottom end is made from forged and balanced parts. The end result of all that attention to detail is an engine that produces 1,004 horsepower at 6,600 RPM and 876 pound-feet of torque at 5,600 RPM. And it'll do that on pump gas. Amazing, right? That's freaking sick. So, is there a catch, or are enthusiasts going to be installing these things in everything? Well, it turns out that there are a couple problems, and you can probably guess the first one. The ZZ632 is currently on pre-order sale for $29,499, but that price is due to go up to 37 grand at some point. So buy now if you ever plan to, otherwise you're just gonna be spending a couple grand more. Don't do it. Buy the dip, y'all, buy the dip. No financial advice is being given on this show, but I do have a lot of good financial advice. Follow me on Instagram at Jeremiah Burton. Now that might sound like a lot of money, but this is a factory-built race motor. So it's honestly kind of a bargain price, you know? 1,000 horsepower, plunk that in, the old catfish, see what happens. Now the other problem is the size. See, the Chevy big block has roots going all the way back to the 1950s, but Chevy hasn't made a production car with a big block since the 70s. You might have seen the guys over at Hoonigan, they did manage to stuff a 632 into a 1980s Camaro. It's pretty freaking sick. But the newer the car is, the harder it is to make it fit. That means it'll be more difficult to fit things like power steering or AC in the engine bay. But come on, it's a freaking race engine. You don't need power steering, you don't need AC, unless it's AC blowing directly on your junk, because it's so large, because you gotta handle all that power. It's just, then there's the weight. And I know what you guys are thinking. He's gonna do a mom joke. I will not do a mom joke, I promise. The 632 weighs in at 680 pounds, or 1.5 of your mom's. The size and weight mean that buying a big block to save time, but using a chassis that wasn't originally designed for one, can result in a lot of building, including everything from stiffer springs, to custom exhaust headers, to reinforcing body welds and engine mounts. But again, this is all race car stuff. It's supposed to be doing that anyways. So even with those downsides, the 632 is a huge achievement, and that's why it won an award at SEMA. Making 1,000 horsepower with a naturally aspirated factory motor is an amazing feat of modern engineering, especially when you consider the roots of the design are over 70 years old. The Chevy big block has lasted that long because it's simply a great way to make huge amounts of power. Even though that award the 632 took home was for best new product, it's kind of like a lifetime achievement award. This is the greatest engine in a long line of factory big blocks, but it also could be the last. The runner-up for that award was the Illuminator, a fully electric crate motor from Ford. So what do you guys think about this? What do you want to see Zach Job stuff one of these things in? I don't know, man. Let your imagination run wild. Put it down in the comments. We thank you guys so much for watching this episode of B2B. Follow us here on Instagram at Donut Media. Follow me at Jeremiah Burton. Follow me on TikTok. I'm on the TikTok. Not really, but I'm on there. Silence of the Lambda. Hilarious pun. A few of you guys probably will or won't understand that, but it's all good. Thank you guys so much for watching. We love you. Until next week. Bye for now.